How did the Doctor come back in Chapter 5? We killed him in Chapter 4, but despite that, he's still alive and apparently on our side. Well, I did some digging and not only found out how, but also what he'll do in Chapter 6. Let me explain first with his foreshadowing. See, throughout the start of the game, we can see the security cameras were still on, despite us sliming the Doctor in Chapter 4. And at first, people jotted it up to the prototype watching us. But while we're in Chum's belly, he asks him to gain access to the cams to find us, implying someone else was using them. This is paired with the note that we give to Giblet right before this, saying, Master Backup, Data Archive, stores a wealth of information, procedures, methods, us, myself, our strengths, our flaws. Backup version is identical to the working version. Unclear which is original or if it matters. Too valuable to erase. Need to keep as leverage. Keep stored in data center just in case. Now, as we know, this note is obviously referring to the Doctor as the Data Archive at the end of the game, was the mentioned backup of the Doctor, explaining how he returned in Chapter 5 as it's a copy of the Doctor we killed in Chapter 4. But this backup raises a lot of questions, with the first obviously being, how is this thing alive? I mean, I understand it's named a backup, and we don't know of any cloning experiments in Playtime, so we can assume this version of the Doctor is an AI with his memories. But even if that's the case, then how does he recognize us? Well, I believe the answer to that question is in the old Doctor's organs. Let me explain. See, we know the Doctor in Chapter 4 was killed because we destroyed its organs that it required to function. But what's important here is the specific organs we destroyed. The first was the lungs, the second was the liver, and the third was his brain. Now, anyone who knows biology should be confused by this, as all of these organs require blood to function or help blood carry out its functions. But despite that, we never destroyed a heart in Chapter 4. Now, this is interesting, as if blood isn't how his organs are functioning, then how are they? Well, I think the answer lies in the data center we find his backup in. See, if you guys don't know what a data center is, it's a room that contains every piece of data in one place. Security camera footage, documents, etc. This would explain how Harley has access to every piece of technology in the Playtime network, and why in his trailer we actually see this data center booting up for his awakening. Now, this is important because to use the data center like this, he would have to literally be pumped into the data center that contains the connection to these technologies, and then back out into his desired object. This would make the data center his form of a heart, using electricity instead of blood and circulating him throughout the factory. This is why, when we destroy the lungs and liver, the Doctor doesn't get hurt or die, as we aren't cutting off vital organs. His only vital organ is his brain, as that's the only organ which emits electrical signals for him to use with the data center. This, of course, raises the question of why even keep these organs around if that's the case. And to be honest, my best guess is that they act as some sort of failsafe to deactivate his main brain, similar to how we pull the levers in Chapter 5 to activate him, as they seem like a retcon since the story changes. Now, you might be asking, how does this explain the backup? Well, it all comes back to how the human heart functions. Let me explain. See, the human heart is known for being a blood pump, with all of the blood in your body going in and out of it to lend oxygen and blood to parts of the body. And as previously mentioned, Harley uses this data center like a heart, but for his consciousness to move through technology. So if we apply this logic to the data center, all of Harley's thoughts and emotions are also going through this data center and back out into security cameras or his robots. And as we know, the backup Doctor is an AI, implying that like real-life AI, it changes depending on the information it's given, meaning it would make sense that to train this backup of the Doctor, the scientists would place him in the data center as an emergency data archive, which would still retain the thoughts and memories of the original, learning his patterns just like how AI does. This explains how he recognizes us and why he seems like the same Doctor in Chapter 4. But if this is the case, then it raises the question, will he be on our side or the prototypes? Well, I think that's answered in this VHS tape found in his office, which I'll play here.
Your suggestions?
To produce the results I'm after. Have I made an error in allowing your survival? Of course not. We just need more time to perfect the time. Time is precisely what we do not have. Then I suggest you find some more. That will give me labs access. At least with the two of us.
That is out of the question.
You will still Fine. But you have no staff, virtually no test subjects. It's hardly ideal conditions. Even when this place was fully operational, we were beating our heads against this. You can't expect to do it on your own so quickly. The situation necessitates it be done quickly. I'm just giving you the facts. And the fact is, we need more time, or this isn't going to work. I can only be reactive up here. Then of what use are you? You know I'm still your best shot at cracking that secret. If I weren't, you would have already killed me. A sound observation.
Yes.
You have made yourself useful. Provide me more options. I will try again. Of course.
But
If you are stalling, or worse, remember,
your usefulness.
is the only reason you were not stripped for meat and spare parts.
Okay, so there's a few things I want you to note here about this VHS. One, Harley points out very specific flaws of the prototype's operation to find out the secret being low test subjects, no time, and no workers. And two, the prototype says that the doctor's only usefulness and purpose of being alive is to help him solve this secret. See, these two things are important because of this line in Chapter 5.
There are the orphans.
I did.
What I had to.
They're
A better place now.
Better place. It's capitalized. And at first, this might seem like a one-off instance, but in the prototype's origins tape, we hear it again with him saying,
about my better place.
because of this better place being capitalized and in reference to first Poppy and second the orphans, it makes me believe that the better place is the secret that the prototype and Harley were trying to figure out. And if that's the case, then it would explain why they were on a time limit and had little test subjects as they were experimenting on the orphans. But there's one problem with this. Why would the prototype keep the doctor alive after? I mean, he has no reason. This is unless we look at what happened to Ms. Gracie. Now, to keep a long story short, Ms. Gracie is the lady that was in charge of brainwashing the toys. And because of that, the prototype didn't want her to die a regular death, but to instead be made into Lily Love braids. I believe that the prototype did the same for the doctor after they solved the secret, making Harley serve him until he has no more use. This would explain why in Chapter 4, we hear the doctor actually hate on the prototype as well. He betrayed him. Not only did he keep the better place findings all to himself and Poppy, but also made the doctor keep slaving away, which is exactly why in Chapter 6, the doctor would be on our side. Think about it. He has no other option. If he wants the credit that he deserves for the better place findings, then he can't be on the prototype's side, meaning he has to join us to stop the prototype. And beyond that, he would want to get his revenge on the prototype for what he did to him. But this, of course, raises the question of how. I mean, he's stuck on a tiny computer screen. Well, I believe that the answer to that question has been under our noses the whole time in his trailer. See, in the Doctor's cinematic trailer, we can see what I believe is his second awakening after we killed him in Chapter 4. I say this because we see the data center servers turning on in the opening scenes and him flipping through the cameras like how we see him do at the start of Chapter 5, which completely contrasts his first awakening that we saw in his VHS, where he's being monitored by Leith and Dr. White. Now, this is important because at the end of the trailer, we can see what looks like an improved Endo from his Chapter 4 boss fight with his iconic blue eye on the TV screen, implying that this is his main body. This is how I believe the Doctor will help us in Chapter 6, by using this body that was foreshadowed in his trailer. I mean, it makes sense. Right now, he's literally just a computer, so to have a body, it would have to be one of the Endos with his computer latched on top, as it's the only way he could move around in his current state to help us. More proof of this is this line from the Doctor saying,
I'll bury myself so far down that no one will ever find me. Not you, not the prototype, not anyone.
Now, obviously, this is referring to his backup, but because of his knowledge of his own backup, it implies that he has a contingency plan to use it, further proving the theory of this main body being down there for us to put him on. But you might be asking, if this is the case, then why can't he just control the factory doors to help us like what we see him do in Chapter 4? Why does he even need a body? Well, the answer to that question is obvious. It's because the only way to stop the prototype is to make the negation formula that's been mentioned throughout Chapter 5. It's his only weakness, but the problem is that we aren't a scientist, we don't know how to make it, and even if we do, we don't know the factory or the machinery well enough. But the Doctor does. This is why I believe in Chapter 6 our goal will be to find the Doctor's main body, attach him to it, escort him to the labs where he can make the negation formula, and then splash it on the prototype to kill him, ending Chapter 6. But that's about it. But wait, if you want official Poppy Playtime figures, then buy them at Figgy's off of my link in the description for 10% off at checkout. Leave your theories below and like and subscribe.